Hello, scientific writers. In this video, we are going to talk about how to fill out an NIH Biosketch. We're also going to talk about some of the changes that are happening at the beginning of 2022 to the Biosketch form. Hi, this is Brian from the Grants and Publications YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me today. Let's start by looking at this webpage. This is the NIH Grants and Funding website, and we are on the Biosketch format pages with instructions and samples. Now, if you look on this page, what you see are instructions for due dates on or after January 25th, 2022, and instructions for due dates on or before January 24th, 2022. So the Biosketch instructions are changing, which might be a little bit confusing if you have the current form. Now let's switch over and look at the templates that the NIH provides for the Biosketches. On the left, you see the template that is for the Biosketches before January 25th, and on the right, you see the template for the Biosketches that are due on or after January 25th. Now the confusing thing is, if you look at the first line, the old version says that it's approved through February 28th, 2023. But that is not true because you cannot continue using this version past January 25th, 2022. So if you have this template saved in your computer, you might want to convert all of the information onto the new template and throw this template away. Now, at first glance, they look pretty similar. In fact, the upper half of the template is the same. We'll quickly go over what is changing in the new form, and then we'll just talk about how to fill out the form. Let's discuss the changes to the NIH Biosketch for 2022. Section B has been renamed from Positions and Honors to Positions, Scientific Appointments and Honors. So that's a slight change in the name of that section, but there is some more substantial change for the requirements in that section also. Secondly, prior to January 2022, there was only one version of the Biosketch that everyone would use. Now there are going to be two versions. There's going to be a non-fellowship version and a fellowship version. For the regular Biosketch, which is the non-fellowship Biosketch, Section D has been removed. Now Section D was called Research Support and or Scholastic Performance. But if you're doing a fellowship Biosketch, there is still going to be a Section D, but it has been renamed to Scholastic Performance. Now, if we come back to the Positions, Scientific Appointments, and Honors section, in the previous Biosketch instructions, where it was just called Positions and Honors, the instructions said to list relevant positions in chronological order. So the NIH left it up to each applicant to decide what is and what is not relevant. Now, in the new instructions, what it says is to list all positions and appointments, both domestic and foreign, paid or not, full-time or part-time. So no longer is the applicant deciding what is relevant. NIH is asking the applicant to list everything and then let them or the reviewers decide which ones are relevant. The other change is that in the new instructions, the positions and appointments should be listed in reverse chronological order. So if we glance back at the overview of the old Biosketch and the new Biosketch, you can see they look mostly the same except for the number of sections that are here on the template and the name of Section B. All right, now let's compare the new version of the Fellowship Biosketch on the left with the non-Fellowship Biosketch on the right. There are a couple of differences that I would like to point out. One is on this upper section where they have this table for education and training. They have the institution, the location, the degree, the start date, and the completion date, as well as the field of study. Whereas on the regular non-fellowship Biosketch, it is missing the column for start date. It only has the completion date. Also, as we mentioned, they have a section D on the fellowship Biosketch for scholastic performance, and they also have some headings for you to put in the year, course title, and the grade that you received in that course. So now I would like to move into the part of the video where I explain how to fill out the Biosketch, and I'll give you some tips for what to put in each of these sections. Before we get into that, though, I would like to tell you some things that you should not do in the Biosketch. These are really important. If you do any of the things that I'm going to tell you, it's going to violate the guidelines and it might result in NIH pulling your application. So here are the NIH don'ts. So don't do these. Don't delete any of the text that is in the template, including the line at the top that has the dates. Secondly, don't add any sections to the template and don't rename them. Don't exceed 5 pages. There's a 5-page limit to the Biosketch. Now it's okay if your Biosketch is shorter than 5 pages. It might be 2 or 3 or 4 pages. That's okay. But don't exceed 5 pages. Also, don't include any hyperlinks or URLs. The only link you can put in the Biosketch is a link to a .gov website that has your full publication list. And we'll discuss the details about that shortly. Also, do not add any figures, tables, or graphics, and do not embed or attach any files to the Biosketch. So why can you not put links and why can you not attach files? Well, this is seen as an attempt to circumvent the 5-page limit. All right, so now let's look at how to fill out the Biosketch. When you download this Biosketch from the NIH website, and I have links in the description below for all of these sites that I'm going to mention. When you download this template, it's going to be in a Word doc format. And what you can do is just click and begin typing. Simple as that. And I can go to the next box. This is for the ERA Commons username. Now, not everyone needs to have an ERA Commons username. Anyone that's going to be a principal investigator needs to have an ERA Commons username, but if you are a student who's going to work on your PI's project, you don't necessarily need to have an ERA Commons username. So if you don't have one, don't panic, just leave that blank. The next box is to put your position title. So what is your title? Let's say your title is postdoctoral fellow. Okay, so it could be something like that, or it could be assistant professor, or it could be graduate student assistant, or it could be CEO or chief science officer. Whatever the title is, go ahead and put that. And then next we have education and training, and we're going to do this in reverse chronological order, beginning with the baccalaureate or other initial professional education. So I'll fill in mine real quickly. All right, so I've filled out my education and training. All right, the next section to fill out is the personal statement. All right, so what do you put in the personal statement? Let's go over that. The main thing you want to get across in the personal statement is to convince the reviewers that you are the right person for the role that you're going to do in the project. So you need to briefly describe why you are well suited for your role in this project. Now keep in mind we're talking about this project, not just a generic personal statement. So you want to customize each Biosketch to each project. So what kinds of things can you describe to the reviewers to help them feel like you are the perfect person for this role? So you should describe various aspects of your training. Talk about the training program you came up through and how it prepared you for this role. Talk about your previous experimental work on this specific topic. And if you haven't worked on the specific topic this project is about directly, well then talk about related topics that you worked on and show how that experience is transferable to this particular project. Talk about your technical expertise, so how you can address the technical aspects of the project. You can discuss your collaborators or your scientific environment and how that's going to make you well suited for the role. So maybe you're in a scientific institution that's well known for a certain topic and you have a lot of people there that are researching that topic. So that environment is going to make it well suited for you, because if problems come up, you can go and talk to those other researchers and solve them very quickly. And maybe your collaborators are the world leaders in this particular topic. If that's the case, make sure you talk about that in your personal statement. Also, you want to discuss your past performance in this field or in the related fields. Another thing you can add in this personal statement section is information on ongoing and completed research projects from the past 3 years. So if you have other grants that you want the reviewers to know about, you can list them here in the personal statement. Now, previously you were going to put that in section D, research support, but that section is no longer included in the Biosketch. Continuing on the Biosketch personal statement, you can also cite up to 4 publications or research products in your personal statement. So what do we mean by research products? What is a research product? Well, they can include, but they're not limited to, the following items: audio or video products, conference proceedings, such as meeting abstracts, posters, or other presentations, patents, data sets or research materials that you have produced that are available to the community, databases that you've made or contributions that you've made to databases, educational aids, or if you have designed curricula, you can talk about that as a contribution. If you've developed any instruments or invented equipment, you can put that, any kind of models, protocols, software or netware, and you can also include interim research products such as preprints. But if you are going to list these interim research products, make sure you check the specific citation requirements. Now I have a link in the description to the FAQs on that topic. Continuing with the personal statement, another thing that you can put here if you wish to, it's not required, but if you've had some factors that have affected your past productivity, such as family care responsibilities, illness, disability, or military service, you can address that in the personal statement. Also, if you have published or created research products under another name, you can note that here in the personal statement. And you can also mention contributions to science that are not included in Section C, contributions to science. For example, if you have more contributions than you're allowed to put in Section C, you can put some of them here. But don't repeat contributions in both sections. Now, the new instructions do not specify a length, but I would recommend keeping it to 1 page or less. The next section to fill out is called Positions, Scientific Appointments, and Honors. Let's go over some details on how to fill out that section. You will list in reverse chronological order all current positions and scientific appointments, both domestic and foreign, including affiliations with foreign entities or governments. This includes titled academic, professional, or institutional appointments, whether or not remuneration is received, and whether full-time, part-time, or voluntary, including adjunct, visiting, or honorary. All right, so this includes basically every kind of scientific appointment. So if you are a professor and you have an appointment as an adjunct professor at another university, so that you can be on someone's PhD committee, for example, you need to list that. Even though they're not paying you and that you don't have any specific duties other than being on that one committee, you still need to list it on your Biosketch. So this is a big difference from previous version where you were only asked to list relevant positions. Now everything is relevant. Now, let's say you're just starting out and you're a high school student or an undergraduate. Obviously, you're not going to have as many positions to list as someone who's been a professor for 20 years. So you can include any previous positions you would like to. Continuing on this section, in terms of honors, you should list any relevant academic and professional achievements and honors. For students, postdocs, and junior faculty, also include scholarships, traineeships, fellowships, and development awards. And if you are a clinician, you should include information on any clinical licensures and specialty board certifications that you have achieved. You're going to put that in this section rather than in the education section. The next section that we will look at is contributions to science. So much like the personal statement, in this contributions to science section, you should try to customize it for each application. So you might not want to put the exact same contributions for project A as you're going to put for project B. But how do you write this section? This is one that's a little bit tricky, and it takes a lot of thought. And you kind of have to be a little bit willing to market yourself and promote yourself in this section. You don't want it to just be a historical list, like on a CV. You need to really elaborate and explain your contributions and your roles in those contributions. So let's look at some details. So the format that you'll use is to briefly describe up to 5 of your most significant contributions to science. The description of each contribution should be no longer than 1/2 page, including citation. So in other words, think about 5 contributions you want to discuss, and then for the first one, write a short paragraph. And we'll talk about the content of that paragraph next. Then go to your second contribution, write that short paragraph, and do the same for your third, fourth, and fifth contribution, if you have that many. If you are early in your career, you might only have 1 or 2 or 3 contributions to write about. What is the content of that paragraph? So for each contribution, indicate the following: the historical background that frames the scientific problem, the central findings, and the influence of the findings on the progress of science or the application of those findings to health and technology. Also describe your specific role in the described work. Another thing you need to know is that for each contribution, you may cite up to 4 publications or research products that are relevant to the contribution. Now, we already went over a list of potential types of research products, so I won't do that again. So you can cite up to 4 for each contribution. So with 5 contributions and 4 citations, that's up to 20 citations in this section. You can even cite a research product if you are not one of the authors. So if you had a role in that project that helped produce that publication or product, if you can explain what your role was and how that contributed to science, go ahead and include that. For example, if you were a high school or undergraduate researcher and you were paid by the hour to do some work and that work was later published, but you got an acknowledgement instead of an authorship because you were being paid to do that, you can go ahead and describe your contribution to that paper. You can say, I collected all the data that was later analyzed and published for this publication. And that's a contribution to science, so you can go ahead and list that. You can also mention manuscripts that have not yet been accepted. So if you have submitted some manuscripts and they're still under review, or if you're revising them to resubmit it, you can mention it in your contribution to science paragraph, but you cannot cite it in one of the 4 research products. However, if you have a preprint, you are allowed to cite these interim research products. Now, if you hold on just a few seconds, I'm going to show you what a completed biosketch looks like. This contributions to science section can be a little bit confusing if we just hear a description of it. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. But before I get to that, there's one more aspect that you need to know. And that is you may provide a URL or a hyperlink to a full list of your published work. Again, this is the only link that you are allowed to include in the biosketch. And that link must be to a federal government website. NIH recommends using My Bibliography, which you get to through your My NCBI account. And I'll have another video showing you how to use My Bibliography and Science CV. I'll link that above. So let's take a look at a sample biosketch. And this was provided by the NIH. I didn't go and find this by myself. NIH provided this example. And so we see the name, the ERA Commons username, the position title, the education, and training, and we can see the personal statements. This person has 1 short paragraph of a personal statement. It can be longer than this if you would like. He or she is explaining why they have the right background for this project. They're giving some history of their training and their success in the past. And notice here they do have an explanation of how their career was disrupted due to family obligations. They've also listed 3 publications here in the personal statement. You're allowed to list up to 4. Also, you are allowed to list projects that are ongoing or completed within the last 3 years. So for positions and honors, notice that this is the old format. The new format, again, is positions, scientific appointments, and honors. And you can see they've added some subheadings to make it a little bit easier for reviewers. They've broken down positions and employment with other experience and honors. You can add these subheadings if you would like, just don't change any of the major headings. Now the contributions to science, this is the most confusing part, so I wanted you to see a good example of that. What this person has done is labeled contribution 1 with a 1, written the paragraph about it, and then listed the publications or research products that are supporting that contribution as A, B, C, D. So this is exactly how I recommend that you do it. Contribution 1, ABCD, contribution 2, ABC, contribution 3, ABCD, and you can see that they have a link to a complete list of published work in My Bibliography. Now again, section D is no longer there. If they wanted to, they could move this information up into the personal statement. For the last part of the video, let's switch to the fellowship application. It still has section D, which is now renamed as Scholastic Performance. So who needs to fill out this fellowship type biosketch rather than the non-fellowship biosketch? Well, this is for applicants for predoctoral and postdoctoral fellowships, applicants to dissertation research grants, such as in R36, and for candidates for research supplements to promote diversity in health-related research from undergraduate through postdoctoral levels. If you are a pre-doc applicant, and this includes undergraduates and postdocs, list by institution and year all undergraduate and graduate courses with grades. And for postdoctoral applicants, list by institution and year all graduate, scientific, and/or professional courses with grades. Now, when you do list the grades, if your grading system is not on a 1 to 100 scale, or if it's not an A, B, C, D, F system, or if it's not on a 0 to 4.0 scale, you need to explain how the grading scale works so the reviewers can calibrate that in their minds. And you should also indicate the levels required for a passing grade. All right, I hope this video helped you know what to do to fill out your biosketch. Check the description for links to all the sources that you need for the information to fill out the biosketch. If you got value from this video, please hit the like button. And if you'd like more videos about scientific writing related topics, consider subscribing to the Grants and Publications YouTube channel. I will see you next time, and happy writing!